So for support groups,
Yeah.
we have we encourage guys to participate in the support group that the Center for Executive Leadership offers. That's Jay Lloyd. He's the
Yeah.
one that moderates, facilitates, helps guide the discussion. That's on Tuesdays at noon, and those are really good meetings. Then we have a meeting here that takes place on Thursdays at 5 p.m. and each meeting has a little bit of a different personality. For our Unbound Grace meetings, we do the first Thursday. We just kind of check in and share, and we do a topic for discussion. So that's kind of, I usually put something on the whiteboard, and we end up just kind of diving deep into a subject.
Yeah.
The second Thursday we share. We do a deeper check-in with each person. The third Thursday we do one of the 12 steps. So this past Thursday was the third, and we did step 9, and it was some really good, encouraging discussion.
Yeah.
And then the fourth week we kind of open it back up, and we check in, but then we have one individual do a deeper dive into their story, and we listen to it, a 15-20 minute version of a story, really sharing what their life has been like. And then we interact with it, not commenting necessarily on the person's story, but where we heard some of those echoes in our heart of our own story, and we interact with it that way. And those are really cool meetings.
That's awesome.
How does so that's open to anybody, or how would one get involved with one of these?
Yeah, they're open. I would love it if they reached out to me just so I could make sure they felt welcome, knew where to come, knew the times, the address, and all that stuff. Yeah, but anybody that's open about saying like, hey, I struggle with this, and I want to come together with a group of people that can discuss it. No judgment, no condemnation, just open discussion. We have guys that their primary struggle is pornography, sexual addictions. We have guys their primary struggle is gambling. Then we have guys like me that's alcohol and pills and other stuff, and opiates. We've had some guys that have gone with Adderall and taken it to an extreme, to where it's
Ambien or anything kind of.
Oh yeah.
All
I
those.
was one of those guys.
Yeah.
That's what that. See, these are the conversations we like to have, because people tend to misconstrue addiction into just drugs.
Yeah.
Alcoholic, or he's on cocaine.
Yeah, and they forget about where there's things can be like. I mean, to me, I think you can be addicted to McDonald's cheeseburgers, or it's food addictions. It's, it's pornography. It's all these things people just kind of throw out. But hard conversations, they don't want to they're like, it's uncomfortable. You say pornography and everybody's like, whoa, I never watched that. Like, you're lying.
Yeah, you do, bro. You have watched it before, buddy.
Even if you don't now, you have seen it. Yes. And that's where I feel like a lot of people take addiction and they kind of throw it out the door. So that's where this is where the conversations we like to have. It's just where people like you and the meetings y'all have, and to learn a little more into where more addictions are, because I feel like maybe if it's not even the fact that people forget, but people don't want to try to understand.
Yep. Well, I do love, I'm going to use an extreme example, just kind of silly, but where in your life can you share the thing that you're most embarrassed about? And then the person say, oh, cool, what'd you have for breakfast? It's like, you're one of us.
Yeah.
You're human.
You're a human being.
Yeah.
I wanted to, Chase brought up a good point about having those. Why do you think, just from your experience, perception, why is, say, food addiction or gambling, why is that necessarily not put in the same corner as smoking crack or shooting methamphetamine? Because, in the brain, I don't know if you know, I'm sure you do. It's basically the same thing, but why is society, why does people don't want to talk about these things? And we just, I don't know, break them into sections or whatever, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I, I don't know the psychology behind all of it, but I would argue that some are more socially acceptable. I have a list. There's a really cool ministry out of church in Dallas, Texas, Watermark Church, and the ministry is called Regeneration, and they have some really good resources. But they produced a list of 117 addictions, and they call it struggles.
Yeah.
But we'll talk more about how a struggle is an addiction and things like this. But there are so many things on there that are like, yep, I'm having, this is now my third cup of coffee this morning.
Yeah.
And then I'll have one again this afternoon. I think that's, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
So the socially acceptable addictions are to some degree social media. Got to get on there, got to make sure I'm keeping up with everybody, because if I'm not keeping up, I'm excluded, or I'm not in the loop, and I'm less than. And I noticed one of the addictions that I developed after I'd been in recovery for a while was Bluebell cookies and cream ice cream at night. And it was fascinating for me to look into what I was doing with my heart and how I was justifying it.
Yeah.
So I would get a cup of ice cream, and then I would get my daughter a cup of ice cream, and we'd go eat ice cream together. And it was like we were bonding, and it was like, hey, Daddy, is it time for our ice cream?
Yeah.
And like that part was cool, but like it didn't have to be ice cream every night.
Yeah.
And an 11-year-old eating ice cream every night is a little bit different than a 45-year-old eating ice cream every night. So
no doubt.
Yeah,
it's a treat. It's like.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, take it, and Chase can tell you, like taking the gym, for example. Man, like, I know that's one thing that I deal with is like, if I don't go to the gym, dude, I kind of feel, I don't know, off or like down or something else, and how like, oh my gosh, I feel like a piece of crap today because I didn't go to the gym. But how in my mind, being obviously addicted to fentanyl, but I can take that same mindset and direct it towards anything constructive. Like going to the gym's great. Going to church or reading that, but it's like you cross that threshold. And again, that threshold, I don't know, it's not defined per se, but you cross it where it starts becoming like a little bit more upset. You're starting to do it for the wrong reasons now. You have body dysmorphia, or you're going to church to have your image to everybody think that you're a good person, And I'm not saying necessarily that's a bad thing but you understand what I'm saying? It's like there crosses a threshold in my mind that correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if Paul said this, but he's like, I have to be vigilant in all things in my life, because I mean, the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and it don't just mean through alcohol or porn. It can creep in anything.
Oh yeah.
And I know that's just something I have to get better at. In my mind, but in really saying that, I want to kind of to go into like, what is recovery kind of define recovery to you, John?
Oh gosh. So I think one of the top traits of a healthy recovery is humility. So I don't think you can define a healthy recovery without having humility as a part of it. And humility, gosh, that's like the ever elusive trait. Yeah. It's like if you talk about it, then you're not doing it.
Yeah.
But if you're not talking about it, are you doing it? Like what does it mean? But I really think humility is true recovery. I think it's the reminder that you are so sick that you cannot save yourself. There is nothing that you can muster up from within you to be able to fix what is wrong. And I think recovery. I want to be cautious with how the audience might receive this, but I am a very big fan of using higher power language. Now, I unashamedly define my higher power as the God as He describes Himself in the Bible. I don't question that. I think that is the only that the triune God is the only higher power. But I like the mindset of there is something greater than me that I have to look to save me from this mess that I've gotten myself in. It's like the hole that you can't dig yourself out of. So when somebody says, y'all are going to laugh. my higher power is the doorknob. You know, how many times have we heard that
Oh
before?
yeah.
I got a sneeze coming. Sorry.
Sneeze it out, buddy. Bless you.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Oh goodness.
Allergy season.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Always.
Goodness. But like this whole concept of higher power, that doorknob is going to fail you, and the collective consciousness of the group is going to fail you. And anything less than the one true higher power is going to fail you. So when somebody says higher power, I'm like, okay, you know, invest in that.
Yeah.
Like really, really give that a shot. But also be humble enough in the process to say, you know what, that's not a higher power.
Yeah.
And so to look to something greater than us to rescue us from ourselves, that's the story of the Bible. From the very opening to the very end, it's God coming in to humanity and rescuing us from ourselves, restoring the relationship that we broke. So that's recovery. And that's why I broaden the definition of recovery way past just somebody that's had an addictive struggle, whether it's cheeseburgers or fentanyl.
Yeah. And I think too, man, it's a lot of mental things for people as well. I mean, I want to say, like, with this is like humility in a point. That's where we talk about all the time. It's funny because I don't want to forget my past, because that humility right there is what drives me every day. Me and him, you know, even if it's working out or working or something, it's usually him or I, like, golly, and it's like, what? It's like, nothing, I just thought of something stupid I did, like, you know. But I believe it's the uncomfortable. I don't want to, because I live my life so I guess I made it a comfortable thing for drinking and doing drugs and things, and I let that was my escape.
Yep.
Of course, for a lot of people, but I got so comfortable with it, I forgot everything about what was meaningful in this world, my family, my friends, myself. So that's where I don't ever want to forget that, and the humility is what drives me to this day.
Yep.
And I don't, like, a lot of people are like, oh man, the past is the past. Well, yeah, it's my past. That's where my walk, everything. But I don't, everybody's like, well, you just got to forget about it. I was like, I don't want to. Because if in my mind, it might be wrong to live like this, but I don't think it is, because if I forget, then I'm getting comfortable again. Because, like, you can forget about your past, of course, but, like, man, I want to remember it, because where I was to where I am, especially in just a short year. It's like I went to a program a year ago. Man, I don't remember what I was doing today. Last year, I wasn't doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I was out drinking, you know, it was whatever date it is, man. It was right before I went into a program. I went on a straight bender. And I don't remember what I was doing. Skipping work. I was just being a piece of crap.
Yeah.
And, like, today, now I'm speaking with you and hanging out. We went to the gym this morning. We're doing a podcast. I get to go play golf. And, like, what a wonderful life.
That's life. Yeah.
And so, like, I can't forget that humility I have, because for that reason.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Well, absolutely, because you've recognized the gift of life.
Yeah.
And you're so grateful. I think gratitude is another just really important mark of recovery. And, like, because of that humility, we can be grateful, and we can say, you know, thank you for the ability to wake up in the morning with a clear mind, to get out of bed, to think, you know, I'm not sleeping this off. I'm not going to lay around. I'm going to get out and enjoy life.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's recovery.
Yeah, it is.
I wanted to ask you this too, John. So, Unbound Grace Ministries, what kind of led you to kind of jumpstart that and get really pushed towards, you know, opening? Obviously, you're doing great things, man. But what was really the the jump all in for you, man?
Yeah. So I got in a place in my life where I needed to go to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
So 2016, in November 2016, checked in. Some of my dear friends said, John, we're not going to let you continue down this path. I woke up at a friend's house, and I came downstairs, and you talk about the walk of shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we'll probably jump into shame here in a little bit because it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
But I walked down, and the Lord just said, you got to quit. You got to quit trying to stop on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to my friends, Ben and Jason, and a multitude of others. I was very fortunate to be surrounded by good people. And Ben took me to rehab, checked me in, helped me pay for it. A group of guys helped me pay for it, and got into UAB, and kind of struggled through, like, oh, I'm in rehab. Like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What is this going to look like? Everything is over. Everything is done. Kind of, y'all have been there.
Yeah.
You go through that. It's like there's nothing. But in the time, I was getting stripped away from all the things that I thought I had built up to define my identity, and eventually through that process of just getting stripped bare, being fully exposed, and then looking to God and saying, I really do have nothing. Now, this sounds like I'm creating the perfect recovery. It by no means was perfect. It involved relapse and sin and selfishness and stupidity. But I think the process had begun of God stripping me down. So I get out of rehab, and part of my story is I thought I had it figured out. The opposite of humility.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, I'm normal now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I got
fixed.
Yeah, I got fixed, so
Yeah.
I'm back at neutral, right?
Yeah.
And that led to a series of some relapses. And by God's grace, I didn't hurt myself, didn't hurt anybody else. Now, emotionally, hurt a lot of people. But through that process, as I began to better understand what God was doing in my heart, and the process of being stripped bare, I was thinking, okay, I've been positioned, and God has allowed me to be a part of some things that can help me connect with people in a similar boat. And what does it look like for me to offer some of what I've learned through the years, but also this recovery experience to other people? And I saw some really good rehabs. I saw some good sober living facilities, but I didn't feel like I saw anything that bridged the gap from a sober living or a rehab to the context of real life. And Unbound Grace exists to help people in recovery in the context of real life. And so I'm a big fan of AA. I think AA was really important in my recovery. But I wanted something with relationship, with some real buy-in on, like, I'm invested in the lives of these people, and I wanted to try to offer that community, and that's why Unbound Grace is here. So I was in early recovery, and some of my best friends, Jason and Amelia, Amelia's in recovery, and I was just talking to her about, like, what do I do with this experience? And I've been blessed. So not everybody has the resources that the friendship resources that I have. People calling, checking on me, encouraging me, asking me to go do things. Like it's normally the opposite. You feel even more isolated outside of rehab because people don't know what to do with you because they might get contaminated or something.
Yeah, right.
So Amelia was like, well, why don't you start something? And I was like, ha ha ha, no. And then just through the months of praying about it, about a year later, with Jason and Amelia's encouragement, we started Unbound Grace, and it's been an enormous blessing. I wanted Unbound Grace to be like just me, like in a safe space, doing pastoral counseling, discipleship, and really walking with individuals. And like first week, it was apparent, like, hey, we need we need a female on staff, because the females in recovery, it's like a barren wasteland.
Yeah.
You know, it's not normally a safe place for women just to pick up and go to an AA meeting. Now, it's not unsafe in the sense that, like, you know, physical harm, but you know, you a female walks into a room, the majority guys, and you know, the like airheaded guys are going to be like trying to hit on them, or you know, whatever. So that was a priority for us from the beginning, to try to get a female on staff that could help meet the needs of women that are starting recovery. So as a result of that, we were able to hire some people. We have support group just for women. Amelia leads 2 of those support groups, and she co-leads with another one of our board members that is just super sharp. So we're able to do that, and just the fruit from that side has been so humbling to see.
Yeah.
How Unbound Grace, man, how, I don't know how to articulate this. How do you put the ball on a tee for people in that position as best you can, so all they have to do is swing?
Yeah. Well, so we offer what I call the rhythms of recovery.
Yeah.
And I say rhythm over habit, because we can develop good habits, and that's great. We can develop bad habits, and you know, that's not as good. But when I say rhythm, I mean something in life that when we don't do it, we're like, it's like if we walked out the door without a shirt on, we'd be like, something's not right. We immediately be like, go put a shirt on.
Yeah.
Well, I want these rhythms to be such a part of life. It would be like, if we didn't do them, it'd be like walking outside without a shirt on. So to tee it up for them, I ask them to do these 4 rhythms. Early recovery, number 1, and this is the only hierarchy. Number 1 is go to gathered worship once a week, whether that's a Sunday morning or it's Sunday evening or Saturday, you know, whatever it is for you in your context. Go to gathered worship once a week. And if you think about it, by the very nature of walking in a faithful Bible teaching church, you are collectively saying, I am not enough in myself. I have to look to something greater than me to help me out in this life. And that it's not just me, it's everybody else. And I know we don't walk through the church with that mindset, but that's, if you really think about it, that's what we're doing. And when we go into gathered worship, we are receiving the gifts of God. We are receiving His truth. Depending on what tradition you are, you might have communion every Sunday, but you are receiving the gifts of God, and then you are set out back into the world to represent Him. And you know, if you think about life, we're coming from Sunday, moving towards Sunday. I say Sunday as the day of worship. You know, again, it could be whatever, but we're coming from it and moving towards it. And with that mindset, we have created a rhythm of life. We're constantly being fed, and we are constantly learning what it means to feed. And so that's our number 1 rhythm of recovery. The other 3, you know, it can the priorities can change. But in the beginning, one-on-one counseling once a week, just to help you get established, to have a safe place to come. And, you know, any good counselor is going to hold up a mirror, you know, the proverbial mirror in front of you, and they're going to help you see yourself more clearly. They're going to help you examine, and they're going to ask you thoughtful questions that help you understand yourself better, help you understand your identity. And then, so we got the one-on-one counseling. We got the support group, which is coming together, and it could be similar to an AA. It could be something that Unbound Grace offers. But you come together with a group of people and say, hey, hadn't figured out life. Here's where I'm struggling. And, oh, yeah, you struggle too. Like, let's talk about this non-judgmentally. And, man, that is such a powerful thing. And then the 4th rhythm is just a group of people that you can share life with. They might not be in any kind of addiction, but they're willing to express areas where they struggle. And this could be, you know, like a family member, a group of people you went to school with, you played Little League baseball together, whatever it is. But a group of people that you can be honest with and share life with, that have been in your house and know that you're good at grilling hot dogs, or you know that you can't clean up the floor, or whatever it is. They know your mess. That's the 4th rhythm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is good. So you said about counseling. I know y'all offer what is pastoral counseling
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm.
So what is pastoral counseling?
Yeah, that is a great question. That's one we've spent a good bit of time this past week on as a staff, talking through how to better articulate what is pastoral counseling. So I would define it simply as um, for us, it's a group of people. There's some education involved. We most of us gone to seminary. Most of us have taken some courses outside of the seminary classes to help us be better equipped to work at Unbound Grace and address trauma and addiction. But pastoral counseling is taking the tools that a lot of the counselors have that have studied at a non divinity school, non seminary school. A lot of the tools that they have developed, only we take these tools and we view them all through the lens of the gospel. So some pastoral counselors might try to approach every problem and look for a passage of scripture. And scripture addresses absolutely everything we need in life to know how to follow God. But what we try to do is we don't try to throw scripture at anybody, and we're not hitting anybody with the Bible. But what we do is we take these incredible tools like the attachment theory or attachment sciences. We look at some of the the different techniques, the emotionally focused therapy, the CBT, all these other things, and we use these skills, but we apply them through the context of the gospel, because ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it all boils down to who are you, your identity. What is your true identity?
Right.
Are you defined by the shame, that dirty little bastard that's sitting on your shoulder telling you all the terrible things about you, or are you defined as a beloved child of God? And it's not that easy. Just be like, oh, I'm the beloved child of God. That takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then if you don't continue to work on it, then you fall out of it to some degree. Not fall out of salvation, but fall out of a secure identity in who you are in Christ.
Yeah. I know you just mentioned shame. You mentioned shame earlier. How does that play a part in one's recovery or counseling or how you view yourself, man?
Oh gosh, shame is enormous. Shame is constantly condemning us. So we think about guilt and shame, and a lot of times we lump them together. I think we erroneously call them synonyms sometimes. So guilt is on the way over here, I ran 3 stop signs. Not really, but so I would be guilty of running those stop signs. But say I ran those stop signs and had to swerve out of the way of somebody, some kid crossing the road.
Yeah.
And then I got to thinking about it, and I was like, man, I could have killed that kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm a terrible person. Why would I ever do that? How terrible is it that I would even consider running a stop sign? And so I would continually accuse myself. So I was guilty, but that guilt becomes a part of who I am. And, I really do picture, I talk about it in the book, but I picture shame as like that little cartoon devil that sits on your shoulder and is constantly whispering in your ear, you're a terrible person. Like, why would you ever do that? Like, what were you thinking? Not only do you do things like that, but like you're constantly having bad thoughts. And so shame is continual accusations of like just degrading your identity. It's not necessarily an addiction thing. I think it's amplified in addiction. We think of all the mornings we've woken up and been like, oh no.
Yeah.
What did I do?
Yeah.
How am I going to piece together what happened yesterday? Or, heaven forbid, we remember what we did.
Yeah.
So that's that feeling when you wake up after a night of inappropriate behavior, however we want to phrase it. That immediate feeling, that's shame. And shame wants nothing more than to destroy you. And so we talk about like the addiction, whatever the object of your addiction is, whether it's alcohol or we're picking on cheeseburgers today.
Yeah.
Alcohol, cheeseburgers, whatever it is, that's how your shame manifests itself. But what you try to do, I think, when you bring somebody into the office and you do pastoral counseling is we'll briefly talk about like the presenting problem, But what we really need to do is dig down into the heart.
Yeah.
And I think shame always plays a very, very important role. And it's can I draw something just to kind of help?
Do whatever you want to do.
This
man.
is all right.
We're in your office, John.
You do whatever you want to do,
All
bro.
right, this is like a truncated version of what I do when people come in. So we got the Titanic. That's scale. That's exactly what it looked like, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure y'all could tell that.
Yeah.
That's a great. Wow.
That's it right there. Okay, now this is where things get funny. So this is my attempt to draw an iceberg. All right, that's the iceberg. Now here's what happens. Say you got an addiction, right? And so one of your loved ones is like, oh, y'all need to go to Unbound Grace and get fixed. And it's like, we never like it when it happens like that. But okay, so this is the water line. Because of the surface tension of water, 90% of the iceberg is under the water, and only 10% is above the water. So what happens is people come in and they see the alcohol abuse, or they see whatever the presenting problem is. We'll just call it addiction.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they see the addiction. We need to talk about the addiction. We need to call it what it is, but then we need to begin to address the stuff that's happening under the surface.
Right.
So, anger is one of those things that kind of it bubbles up, and we'll see that above the surface.
sure.
But anger first builds from inside. And then, so we're not going to do the whole thing, but we'll go through a series of things going on in your heart. And then ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to get down and we're going to address shame. And we're going to dig into this one for a little bit. But the very bottom of the iceberg, and this is my opinion, but I think it always ends with identity.
Yeah.
So here's where I try to leave this session when we dig into this, or here's where I try to write a few things, then sit down and really discuss what's going on in our hearts. So when we get to this point, we're either identified by shame, or we're identified. I'll be artistic here. Oh, this is terrible. Or we're identified by Christ.
Yeah.
Now, if we're identified by shame, then we will continue in addiction.
Yeah.
Or we might quit drinking alcohol or eating cheeseburgers, but then we end up being addicted to the gym, or we ended up being addicted to running or whatever it is.
It just funnels into something different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what is it? Calvin said, our heart is an idol factory.
Yeah.
We produce a new idol, and that new idol becomes our new addiction. And the really scary part is when we replace alcohol kind of substance type addiction with something that's socially acceptable.
Right.
Like you become a workaholic, or you become addicted to stuff. Like I got to get this, I got to get that. And then the other option, I think, is to believe what Christ says about you, that you are his beloved child, that you are his workmanship, that you're created in his image, and that he loves you deeply and passionately. And that's what we have to remind ourselves of all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I was going to, innately, you're talking about we make idols basically of anything, but, addressing the human nature of that. I mean, that just defines us as human beings, right?
Exactly.
But how, and this is honestly just coming from me, it's almost like I feel that I have to fill that void with something. And like I was saying, like whether it's the gym or eating healthy, it's constructive, but then you cross over that threshold until it's more of a, I don't know, it becomes an obsession at that point, and it's the unhealthy mindset, or where in your heart you're like, I'm not good enough. It always comes back to like, I'm not good enough, or I could do better. Where have you seen, I guess, in the identity to kind of mitigate that if that makes any sense, kind of mitigating, because going to the gym is great. That's very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But going 7 days a week for 2 hours a day, or eating clean for 6 months straight's not good for the mentality. There's certain things. So how do you, I guess, through your experience, how have you seen to, or how does John mitigate that?
Yeah, I think you surround yourself with other people.
Yeah.
I think you cannot do it in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think you do it in community.
Yeah.
And you express vulnerability by sharing your heart with others. And it's almost like you very much, you pull it out of your chest and you say, hey, I've been going to the gym a lot. I really like going to the gym.
Yeah.
But I kind of think I might be going too much and staying too long.
Yeah.
Like, will you help me see my heart more clearly?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the beauty of these support groups. That's the beauty of what we talked about, the 4 rhythms. One of those rhythms was just a group of people that you share life with, and that you share the ugly parts of your life with, and that they share the ugly parts of their life with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you do also an internal exercise where you say, okay, what's my motive here? Am I going to the gym because I'm not happy with the way I look? Or am I going to the gym because it's part of my recovery?
Mm-hmm.
I think exercising for me is a vital part of my recovery.
Yes.
But I think y'all, we're hitting a really important point of when does that replace our addiction and become a new addiction?
Right.
And we're better to avoid it becoming an addiction when we have other people around us, that know our heart, that we can say, hey, I think my motive might be pure, but I'm starting to question it, and I need some help.
Yeah.
I got you. Now, I want to talk about your book a little bit, man. I guess I'll ask about this in the fact of, like, what inspired you to be like, hey, I want to write this book. I want to move this forward, man.
Yeah. Well, it's it was a therapeutic exercise personally to be able to flesh this out. But it was also an opportunity, I feel like, to share a story about addiction and to be really raw and invite people into that story, but invite people into the story that might be struggling as well, that might not know what to do with the struggle. So one of the gifts of being in recovery is we're a little bit less concerned with our image, because we've been so exposed. We realized that what was so painful and raw, that exposure that hurt so badly, actually is a gift that God's given us. That we all of a sudden discover we walk with a limp, and we're like, oh no, I got to disguise this limp. And then we begin to realize, like, wait, that limp, that might be the best thing about me, because it shows me that I am weak, but I can walk because my Savior cares enough about me to allow me to continue in a relationship with Him. So, I think the limp becomes a blessing. And this was an opportunity to share my limp in a way that points to God, saying that He rescued me from myself, that left to myself, like, I'm not here today, but by His grace I am.
Yeah.
And it's not a book you're going to sit down and read and be like, oh, I figured out addiction. It's not a scientific book. It's just a series of stories, and I share a lot of my story in here.
Yeah.
But I share a lot of different illustrations. It is definitely, there's a lot of scripture in there. There's a lot of helpful techniques. But it's not about like some new trick or some new science. And there's some practical things in here.
Yeah.
But I really think it's learning how to rest in God and trust Him, so we can try harder, or we can trust Him. And I hope that this is a grace-based book that helps us remember to rest in Him and to find peace in Him. But I had someone kind of help me edit, so I could, my scatterbrained thought would be a little bit more cohesive.
Yeah.
I think the back is a pretty fair description. I'll just read the first sentence. The first two. It is desire's nature to want more. Like, think about our desires.
Yeah.
It is desire's nature to want more. No human is free from this predicament, and as a result, we are all addicts in need of recovery. I'm not saying that people that drink too much alcohol are addicts. I'm saying that in humanity, we are all addicts in need of recovery. And then I, kind of jump into my story, but um, I I think it's worth your money,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
And if not, send it back to us, and we'll give it to somebody that wants it. But no, it was a really really difficult task, but one that I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what was the obviously you're being raw and you're telling your story, but the difficult task being what? Like, what was so difficult about that for you?
So I would get up real early in the morning and write, and I came up with an outline. So the book idea, I had a conversation with a guy by on a really cold day by a fire out in Colorado, and I remember just sitting there. I'm looking at beautiful creation, and this guy was a publisher, and he was like, "You ever thought about writing a book?" I was like, "No, that would be what a terrible idea." And he was like, you got a story that's worth sharing. It could be really encouraging to a lot of people. And he twisted it on me, and he made it not about me, and he made it about like encouraging other people. And I was like, "Oh, you dirty rascal!"
Yeah.
And then I sat on that for a year, didn't do anything about it. Just thought about it, prayed about it a little bit, but not as like top of the list type stuff. And then I had another conversation with that same guy the next year at the same place. And I was like, all right, Lord, you might be putting something together. And so I sat down, I made an outline, and I made a flow for each chapter. And I addressed a topic in each chapter that I thought was really important. And I came up with the outline for a book. And then I was like, oh man, I might need to sit down and write this. So I called the guy, and he connected me with a really, really sharp woman that could take my thoughts and say, okay, it was amazing some of the stuff she did. So I would write out a chapter, or I would write. I wrote the first 6, and then I wrote the next 5. So I gave her the first 6 chapters, and she would say, "Hey, this illustration." She was so encouraging, more so than she should have been. But she would say, "Hey, this illustration is great in chapter 4, but it'd really be better in chapter 2." And I'd be like, "That's amazing. How do you do that?" Or she'd be like, "What in the world are you talking about in this paragraph?" And I'd be like, "Oh, that doesn't make any sense." And she would say, "Well, what if you said it like this?" So that was pretty
cool.
good. Yeah.
So like, you kind of in that sentence, it spoke to me right there, just kind of with desires. So like, as human beings, like our desires are kind of what fuels us. I feel like it's like your desire to, you said like, to have these things or to do these things. So like with your desire with Unbound Grace, it's to help people. Like that's ultimately why y'all started this, right? Just with addictions and things like that. And that's why our desires now, and your desires change, I feel like, throughout your life, obviously, because with how, again, where I was speaking earlier with what I was doing with my life until now, especially how the years has changed for me. And it's been 1 year, and it's crazy how my desires have changed in 1 year.
Yeah.
And I think about this all the time, because where people have told me, and it goes through my mind, and it's not the shame or anything like that, but how they talk to me about things like not what I should be doing, but what I could be doing. And I've always in my heart have wanted to help people. And I've always tried, but I was doing it in the most ridiculous manner. The advice I was giving people, I should have been taking myself.
Yeah.
And I wasn't living a life that I should be.
Yeah.
So, it's funny how desires, like now I do want to help people. That's why we started this. And I want to, and I know with Chris too, it's my desire has changed on to helping people. I want people to understand, because even when I was going through my addiction, I never understood why I was the person I was. And I still don't. I'm learning. And I think that desire because we talk about this too, man. This podcast isn't just, it's for everybody, and I want people to understand, but it's for us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
This is our counseling.
This is our counseling.
This is our church. This is our this is our it's working all week and then getting to sit down and hang out with you, and our discussions are our way of engaging with people, and that desire, it feeds us every day, because it's like, and it gives us something to look forward to. Like, the past couple weeks, we're like, oh man, we got to hit it with Michael, we got to hit it with, and then now we got John tomorrow, and it's cool. That's where my desires have changed, man. It's like, where it's not like what I can do for myself, it's what I can do for others now. And I feel like always, it's, you don't want to take away from the fact of being a better you, obviously, but it's funny when you change your mindset into to helping others, how gratifying that is for not just you. And it's not even if we're just changing people's lives. That's what we talked about too, is that just yesterday or something. It's like, man, it was one of the homeowners, man. He's like, man, in a couple years, and y'all have these millions of followers. If it happens, cool. But in my mind, I want to think about, if that does happen, how many lives we have changed.
Yeah.
That's the cool part. We have like 100 and something now, but it's cool to the part it's where people are engaging, and I really hope those 166 people, we've done something to help them in their life. So that's not the gaining of things. It's, I really hope they tune in and they engage, where it's like, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's where my desire has changed. I'm not trying to get these millions. Cool if it does, but I really hope if it does, that number is, we changed that many people. And that's all I want, man.
Yeah. I love that. Absolutely.
So,
yeah. It's, I was thinking as you were sharing that, you think about the person that prepares to teach something, and they're preparing so that they can communicate it clearly to the audience, so that audience can then learn what they're teaching.
Right.
But who benefits more, the person that prepares to teach or the person that hears the teacher?
Right.
It's usually the teacher, because they've gotten to jump deep into whatever the subject is. And that's what y'all are doing. Y'all are doing some hard work that is really motivated to serve others, but y'all get to reap some of the reward of being a part of God's work. It's amazing. Like, God doesn't want our perfection. He wants our faithfulness. He's perfect. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need it from us. But he just wants us to trust him. And I love how y'all are doing that. And I love how you're holding it loosely too. It's like, God, whatever you do with this, just let us enjoy the ride. Like,
that's always worked out, man. Like, one time we had a guy was going to come on like Sunday morning, and that night about 8:00, he called and said he couldn't. And we cleared the whole day just, and I get it. Look, no hard feelings and everything, but then how just we made a few phone calls, and then we got hooked up with some people, and that blossomed into something we couldn't even fathom. Being part of many events, setting up and being a vendor at events, and people coming to talk to us and stuff. That would have never happened if this individual didn't cancel. And we're a little bit mad about it. Look, dude, we just cleared all this stuff, but then how that, I couldn't even dream of what that would have led to, And but I wanted to ask you this, man.
Yeah.
I'm talking about desires, but in 5 years, what is your desire for Unbound Grace, man? If you had the perfect world and everything was at John's disposal, what would be, the perfect envision of that, man?
Yeah. So, I think similar to your vision for this podcast, that we position ourselves to best serve the community that we have the opportunity to interact with. I think ultimately the best way we can do that is by continuing to do the things that we're doing faithfully. But I think the 5-year vision is to better position ourselves to serve the church more effectively. And the way that I want us to do that is develop some, I'll call them packages, but some curriculum, some really neat and clean resources that we give to the church and that we help the church use to begin to develop recovery communities within the church. Because I think, as much as I love what we do at Unbound Grace, we are seasonal for the most part, in that people come in and they participate in the rhythms of recovery, the one-on-one counseling, the support groups, the community that we try to create, and they participate for a period of time. And now we, excuse me, we have some people that have been doing the support groups for years, and that we love that. We want that, and we need that. But ultimately, what we want to do is get people connected in the church, because the church is for all of life. It is from birth until we get put in the ground. And if we can get people plugged in at the church that are not scared to share their stories, because their story is not about their behavior, what they've done good, what they've done bad. Their story is about how God has rescued them. And that is, if you follow Jesus at all, then you have said, I am not enough. I cannot save myself, and I need you to save me. And that is the story of everyone that follows Jesus. That is the story of everyone that is a part of the church. So as a part of the church, our stories look different. Some of us look more like the prodigal son, the younger brother. Some of us look like the older, whatever our story is. But the recovery community can't only be about the recovery community.
Yeah.
It's got to be a part of the bigger story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you're a part of the church, you're not, we don't want to create a subculture of recovery church.
Yeah.
We want the recovery to be recognized by everyone in the church, because we're all rescued.
Yeah.
Well, that's like a big thing is what we try, like, and I may have explained it in a different way too, but like some people, I hope they watch this and they don't think, they're like, man, I don't need that. But at the end of it, they're like, I may need that. I never, and it just, you put it into a perspective where like, wow, like, because some people, I mean, I was, it was rehab and things were just like, I had so many people around me like, oh, rehab's for quitters and this and that. And like, you know what I mean? For real.
It is.
Yeah.
Because you want to quit.
Yeah, but for good reasons.
Right.
For good reasons. It's not, but it was put into my mind of negativity that like, if I do that, it's, oh man, but who cares?
Yeah.
When you want to better yourself, it's like, yeah, you want to quit alcohol and drugs and things that have beat you down, like that are just make you not a good person.
Yeah.
And, and it's some people, I love when I get, especially now, I get messages from people like, how did you do it? How did you do it?
Yeah.
How do you, and that's where Chris asks a lot of people is how day by day, like how do you do it?
Yeah.
And
I'll ask you in a second, man.
Yeah. And I'll let him, but it's a cool factor, man, because I don't want to be that person to like, oh, Chase is this, like, no, man, I just want to help you.
Yeah.
If I can help you, ask me questions where, like, if you need somebody to talk to, if you just need a friend, I got you.
Yeah.
Don't be scared to ask, and I'll give you my best information. I'm not perfect. I'm still trying to figure it out. But like, if I can help you direct it, cool, man. Like, call me, text me, message me, whatever. Like, don't hesitate, because if you have that thought in your mind, usually you need help. You want something better, and it's like, I try to stress that to people. It's, I found God again. I had to go to a program. It was the best decision I've ever made.
Yeah.
I had to do this, but I have to wake up every day to daggone do my best.
Right.
And still keep that mindset of being the better me. What is that? I don't know. It's waking up, making my bed. It's doing this. It's doing that. But there's routines. But I find a different one every day. But it's just something you balance, man. It's how you figure it out. But that's what we call ourselves as the figures. You have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you're going to do
like
that
that.
every
We don't know
day
everything,
for the
buddy.
rest of our
We don't
life.
know
For the
everything.
rest of
Yeah.
our life, we
Yeah.
are an addict. But I also say this too, because I tell a lot of people, I was an alcoholic because I want to take the stigma and I want to take that thing. Am I an alcoholic? Yes, but I was an alcoholic
I like
because I
that.
don't want to be an alcoholic anymore, and I'm not.
Yep.
So why do I say I am? Because I'm not. I don't want to be. So if you take that out of the perspective, I'm not an alcoholic. Because I had a guy that told me, and I was telling him what we did, our podcast, and I was like, yeah, I was an alcoholic. He goes, well, you are an alcoholic. I was like, yes, sir, but I'm not anymore.
Yep.
You know, so
I love it.
That's
identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's where and I love AA too, but at the same point, you bring up your past again, which I love, but it's, hi, I'm Chase and I'm an alcoholic. I don't want to be that no more. So I don't want to disguise myself as an alcoholic anymore. So hi, I'm Chase. I was an alcoholic. That's where I want to be.
Yeah.
And that some people don't agree with, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
And that's who I want to be. I
love
don't
it.
want to be Chase the alcoholic. I want to be Chase was an alcoholic. And he's helping people.
Yeah.
And he wants to do this. And he wants to do that. And whatever that is in life, I don't know what the future may bring. But I'm not an alcoholic anymore.
I love it.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So social sciences would say in order to change, you begin to identify as the change.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what you're saying. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if I want to be a marathoner, then I'm not working my way up to being able to run a marathon. I have to take on the mindset of I am a marathoner.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful way to look at it. I think it's healthy. It's empowering.
You can be who you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just have to, but you have to work and progress towards it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's marathons. You have to train every day.
Yep.
If you want to be that.
Yep.
You know, it's not, you don't get a day off. You go run your 5K every day.
Yeah.
You know,
get on it.
Whatever it is in the morning or whatever, but you make time to do that, to be that person. If you want to be that, but that's where a lot of people mistreat and take things away because they're like, well, I want to be this, but I'm not like this person. Well, you're never going to be that person. So be who you are, but train to be who you want to be, not, oh, I want to be Chipper Jones. Well, buddy, I'm going to tell you, I'm Chase Ford. My name ain't Chipper Jones.
Yeah.
But I can, and I guess you can emulate things with like people and
can
stuff.
learn.
If you want to take that and like, and take their, what is that? Their way of doing things.
Yeah.
I guess.
You learn a lot from others. Absolutely.
Yeah, but at the same point is you're not gonna be. I don't walk in John Stegley's shoes.
You
I
don't take
walk
on
in
their
Chris
identity.
Sosby's shoes. You know, I walk in my shoes. But yeah, you can emulate the things that they do, how they train and things like that. But at the end of the day, man, be who you are.
Yeah. That's the truth, man.
Yeah.
Man, this is the last thing. We don't want to keep you too long, man.
Oh, you're good.
So, what does John Stakely do? His day to day. How does he keep himself in or help to stay the course, stay the way, man?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the perspective of coming into this, like on a day-to-day basis. So there's some pretty intense things that we deal with. And if I offer people John Stakely, then they got no hope. Like, holy cow, they're in trouble. But if I can point them towards Christ, then they have guaranteed hope, like hope that will not fail. So I have to constantly, and this is a constant reminder. And this, if there's anything worth offering at Unbound Grace, it is Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got some experiences and some
Mm-hmm.
stories and some education and some, all these things. But the end of the day, if I'm going to go to bed at night, it's going to be because I've offered people Jesus and not myself. Because if it's up to me to fix people, it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But we worship the God that delights in allowing us to know our desperate need for Him. You think about Adam and Eve in the garden, but before they disobeyed God, they were completely dependent on God, and they lacked nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after they disobeyed, they had a degree of independence, and they lacked that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then God's immediate response to that was to come into the garden and to ask them, "Where are you?" And that "Where are you" was not for Adam and Eve. I'm sorry, it was not for him. It was not for God. God knew exactly where they were, but they had camouflaged themselves. They had covered their shame. They had camouflaged themselves, and they were hiding. God goes into that, and He says, "Where are you?" And I think He says, "Where are you?" as an invitation, saying, "Hey, I'm here. I'm coming into this mess. I know what's happened. Come out." And His first response to that is to kill an animal, sacrifice it, skin it, and to clothe them, and then to promise that He will offer restoration to that relationship through Christ. And that's the whole Genesis 3:15. But that's the God we serve, and that's the God I want to point people to. Because at the end of the day, we are covered up in shame, and there is only one hope, and it is not me. It is not some behavior technique, do this trick to change this behavior. It is the person of Christ, and that's what Unbound Grace is about, and that's what we try to offer people.
Awesome, man.
Awesome.
Well, buddy, thank you for sitting down with us, man. We appreciate it. When we say, look, we say this all the time. Money's great, things are great, but one thing you'll never get back is time and giving time back. And we just appreciate people taking the time out to sit down with us. I know we appreciate it. So, hey guys, make sure y'all show John some love, man. He sat down with us. We had a great conversation. Make sure, hey, check him out. Check the book out.
Amazon.
Hey, what's your website? You got a website?
Unboundgrace.life.
All right.
And if you're struggling, you need somebody, you need good people. These guys are it.
Yeah. Look us up.
Yeah, and if they, I'm not saying they can't, but if they can't, they'll direct you to somebody that can.
No doubt.
And that's all they want to do.
Yep.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you, bud.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, man.